Hello everyone, we're just waiting for a few moments, a bit of preamble, a little bit early. We are expecting quite a number of people on this webinar. So as the numbers increase and we get to 3 o'clock, it's good to see you. Thanks for signing up. This is a webinar in an occasional series that I do, and I'll do a bit of introduction shortly when we start, but might be useful if you use the chat function and just give me an indication of your role. We've got quite a diverse group today, so be interested to see the types of people that we've got in there, mainly so I can shape any examples that I talk about on this webinar to customize it for yourselves. So if you use the chat function, just put your job title or something on there to give me an idea. Just people are coming on now. Might need to go to a couple of minutes past 3. Make sure we've got everybody that can make it. Good to see you. Obviously, there'll be a recording afterwards, so you can have a party at home and show all your family and friends. The topic should be of interest to anybody working in an organization because programs work to a certain level, but they don't always meet their intended success. And I think most organizations will fit into that category. So I'm interested to share. Hello, Stephen. How are you? Thanks. You've used the chat function. Dean, nice to see you here. Very good. Yeah, I was saying this is a topic that as a managing consultancy, we find that these everyday conversations about making things stick, sustainability is the key thing. Otherwise, organizations are going through a cycle of new fads. There's a danger of that hasn't worked properly. It must be the process, and they don't look at themselves as much as they could. Offshore asset manager, goodness, great. Good diversity here. Operations management, asset management. As I said, oh, nice to meet you too, Jan. Lean management consultant, very good. Well, we're always looking for new people. What's your area of expertise then, Jan? Just while we're having this preamble. Lean in any particular industries, any organization? Change management consultant, very good. Thank you, Kim. I'll be talking about 3 top reasons today why change programs often aren't sustainable, but there are more. But I've picked the top 3 that we see. This is very practical, the real practical things that we see when we go into a client's organization. 3:05, we'll give it another minute and then we'll kick into the program itself, the webinar. Questions, I'm very happy. Risk consultant, Steve, thanks. Just seen that pop through. I'm very happy to take through the chat function. So some of you have now started to use it. Through the chat function, automotive, thank you. Fast moving consumer goods as well, very good. So using the chat function, ask a question anytime. If it's connected with exactly what I'm saying, that will actually help me. And if it's not directly connected, but I am going to address it, I'll mention it that it's going to be part of the webinar itself. If not, might leave it to the end. But we have designed in questions at the end for you. Pharmaceutical, yeah, we've done a lot of work in pharmaceutical. Very good. Right, we're building up an audience. Just give it another few seconds because experience says somebody was about to log on and somebody caught them in the corridor. If you're not working from home, which a lot of people aren't anymore, they're having a deep conversation about this year's budget, probably. Okay, so we've got a critical mass. Shall we start? And let me introduce me and the company. Okay, so my name is Martin Gummery. I set up New Leaf International about 25 years ago, or even a bit longer. Ex Procter & Gamble, learned a lot about management, but also change management. So learned a lot about organizational development. They sponsored me to do a degree in organizational development, which led me on to projects, big change projects. And I got a reputation. I worked there for 15 years. Joined a global team and became an internal consultant. And I've built the New Leaf company, the brand, I suppose you could call it, based on that early philosophy from those days and my systems thinking academic background through organizational development. And as an organization, we specialize, it's a boutique management consultancy. We specialize in using, it's a systems thinking approach, but we specialize in what we call our integrated framework, which is a set of change management components, workshops, one-to-ones, projects, senior management, sponsorship, work in the workplace itself. And it's a system, and a system for all you people that recognize this as outputs. And the way that it's designed is there's 3 outputs that are addressed in an organization. We work with the client, so we put client employees through the framework, and business results, raising their capability and making a shift in the culture is a simultaneous 3 outputs of this. And the reason why I say that is that this is part of sustainability. It's part of making things stick. Often we go into organizations before and we've built this up from working in big banks, big service industries. We came from manufacturing, but this integrated framework is built around the fact that other things haven't stuck. And part of it is everything needs to be joined up to make it stick. Okay, so that's us. We pride ourselves in holistic, organic change, not linear. And I'll say more about that as we go through the webinar pack. So ultimately, if you boil it down to what is it we really do, we work on eliminating inefficiencies. And the reason why this is a slide today is that when you look at big change programs in organizations, the design of those programs and the way that they're implemented often take some of the unseen inefficiencies that are in the organization as they are before the program. So the program brings in some of those habits, some of those inefficiencies. So if you boil it down and why we work in so many different types of industries, you'll see some examples at the bottom of that slide, is that the concepts fit any organization at all. We came from manufacturing, but we spread our wings to finance, services, call centers, all sorts, because the principle of a lot of this work and things I'll talk about today are based on exactly the same thing. Anything with people in it have such a large commonality. So all organizations benefit from this type of work. So inefficiencies. Let me just have a look at this. So you know that the topic is about making things stick, why some organizations struggle, a lot of them actually. And if you look at, I'm a keen drawer, so I'll bring this into the webinar itself. So if I draw a graph here and we look at success over time, then what we're talking about here is not if an organization starts at that level of result, then it's a complete failure. What happens, and a lot of you will know this, Hawthorne effect and this type of thing, is that it starts off well with good meaning, but then it starts to drop. And the enthusiasm starts to drop, and what happens in an org, you'll see some of this, and some people will deny it, but there is an improvement in the overall success, whatever we're measuring as part of the program, results, upskilling, all those things. And we're more grateful that there's been some result than what it could have been if it was sustained well, because it could be fantastic. And one of the symptoms of that work and not understanding what to do is you end up starting anew. So if I just change color, something I can do, right? So the alternative to that is making sure that this sustainability is in place. Alternatively, when you get to here, there can be a cultural issue that says this system wasn't for us. We shouldn't have done lean. We shouldn't have done Six Sigma. We shouldn't have done these things. They blame the process and they don't blame some of these inefficiencies that are in the business. So just wanted to make that point, that we're not saying it's a no-goer, nothing happens, it's a car crash at the beginning. It's a gradual decrease, and sometimes we never see it. And sometimes organizations live with it, knowing that in 3 years' time, they're going to have a different type of program. And yet, in my Procter & Gamble days, one of the things that we learned was New Leaf employ other Procter & Gamble people as well for this reason, is that we learned about integrated work systems. Now, I left a long time ago, and those integrated work systems, those programs are still in existence in the organization now, because it was sustainable and it was cleverly designed to put new sub programs inside it. So 3 key traps. So I'm going to talk about 3 key things that we see when we go into organizations. The first one is the wrong level of thinking. Now, what I mean by the wrong level of thinking, or the same level of thinking, is that we see often that organizations will start a program, they'll be halfway through a program, but they always bring their same thinking. And the reason why, excuse the overuse of the word, but why we think thinking is so important is that if you go to the Deming model, a lot of you will know it. If you go to the Deming model, what he said was the way we think drives the systems in the business, and those systems drive the behavior that we have in our individual employees or teams, and that behavior drives the current level of results. So that's Deming's, and we use this a lot at New Leaf, and I suggest you almost have it as a poster in your organization. So the way you think drives the system's behavior, then you get the results. Now, I'll just change color because I want to make a couple of points about this. And that is systems. I'm talking about work systems. So I'm not talking about IT systems. I know there's IT systems. We've all got IT systems. But I'm talking about the systems that build the organization's work. And they come in 2 levels. And even within these levels, there's different degrees. So there's hard systems and there's soft systems. So hard systems are the tangible things. So, can you put it in my hand? Can you describe it? Is it a policy? Can you draw a flow chart of it? You know, is it something that's in the HR policy document? Is it something that is up on the notice boards? Is it something that's tangible that's on the machine that makes jars of jam? Is it a checklist? Is it a process for problem solving? All these are hard systems. So those hard systems, you can see them. The soft systems, and the way that I can best describe what I mean by soft systems is, if you ask somebody, why are you doing this? Show me how you do it. And there's no hard system. That's a soft system, right? It's just their answer is, oh, it's just the way we do it around here. So there's soft systems and there's hard systems. So when Deming thought of this, he clearly, and he drew a line here, said systems were work systems, both the ones you can touch and the ones that you can sense. And they're both sets of thinking. They're both sets of systems. So the other key thing here is that only 5% of the results are down to individual or team type behavior. 95% is down to, if you think of hard and soft, it becomes more realistic. 95% of the results are down to those systems that you have in the organization. Just seen a question there from Kim. What is the model called? Well, we can send you a copy. All we call it is the Deming model. So if you look him up, you might find this, but we've actually got posters of it, probably got a little write-up on it as well. So I've got no official title, but we call it the Deming model. So if you look at this, now the big issue here, change color, because I can. Most situations that aren't effective, inefficient, is when a business looks at changing at this level, because it's only equivalent to 5% of the reasons. And what I mean by this is the organization address the symptoms. The symptoms are down here. What we see in the business is that person doing something a bit unusual, not getting us the result we want. We go to them and say, "Oi, stop doing that, get a better result." And we end up dangerously going round in circles. And I've seen it often. There are examples of organizations communicating with their customers to say, we won't have that quality issue again because we've told them not to do it. Well, that's living in the world of symptoms. That's living in the 5%. So why we think the wrong level of thinking is one of the key traps is that if we open our mind to thinking differently before we jump into addressing, it's almost a knee-jerk reaction, isn't it? Before we jump into looking at quick fixes, if we think differently and know that if we make the changes in our systems, the systems drive the behavior that we want. And we have used this today, the wrong level of thinking, because we think people use their existing level of thinking. They may look at their systems, that's great, but often in a panic or a rush, they go down. And even program designs for significant change will still have lots of element of give these guys a checklist and tell them to fill it in. And that isn't a total part of the system. If you think about Deming and his work systems, then it's a combination. The perfect solution is hard. Just need to get my pencil working. The perfect solution is combining hard checklists, processes with soft ways of working, training people differently, and amalgamating those two things. And I will talk about that a little bit later. So one, wrong level of thinking. So I've divided this into 3 sub reasons, and I've sort of illustrated them in that Deming model to start with. Yes, Kim, it's Deming, 1M. I've broken this down into 3, all right? So inappropriate thinking is when we think we need to start at the top. Starting at the top is only communication. So if we go to senior managers and say, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do the other, the best we get is lots of senior managers know what we're going to do or what you're going to do. They don't actually do it. Where the doing is done is in the middle of the organization. So if you get a group of people in the middle of the organization doing things, okay, you've got to get senior management approval, but these are meant to be people, by the way. So if you get a group of people doing things differently in the organization, then you start to get what we call a ripple effect. So they start to make a difference. It's like throwing a pebble in the pond. So you're throwing a pebble in the pond. They're starting to do things differently, raise their skills, start to deliver projects, start to fix simple things, all in their area of influence. Then those ripples start to hit other things in the business. And then in real time, when those ripples, when you start to do activity, you start to see different inefficiencies in the business, and that's a perfect time to address them. Of course, you address them the nearer they are to your area of influence. And I think when you link this to how we think, there's a danger that we think the program has created these issues. But I learned a long time ago that these issues are already in the business. The program has just highlighted them. So without being too wishy-washy about it, we should celebrate the fact that it's identified the issues. The alternative, this is this all holistic, organic approach, which we fully support at New Leaf. This is a clear alternative, and I've had many debates of a linear approach of must do 1, then do 2, then do 3, then do 4. We do 1, we tick it off. We do 2, tick it off. By the time we've done 1 and 2, the things that have been happening in 3 should have been addressed, because we've realized that they're getting highlighted in this organic approach. And that's why we sort of have to balance the linear approach to an improvement program with the organic, holistic approach. Second point there is the new thinking to enable change of the work system. So I've already talked about that with the Deming diagram. And then the other part there, the third part, I've got another diagram to talk you through. And the thinking isn't always at the right level. So if we get together in an organization and start to think differently, we've got to think in a sequence. So my diagram here, this isn't Deming, this is me, right? So I drew this, and again, it's based on a graph, but you've got the y-axis, which I've called granulation. Say a bit more about that in a minute. And then you've got bandwidth of thinking. So the x-axis is showing how much thinking, how broad a thinking should we be. So obviously, at the bottom of this, what I call a funnel, at the bottom of that funnel, you've got less room for new thinking. It's basically closed. It's either this way or it's that way. We must do it like that. We have to do it like this. Up here, it's much broader. We can play with lots of different ideas, explore new ways of doing things. I've called it conceptual. So let's have a look at this granulation again. So if I draw big lumps of activity, as you go down the funnel, just using the granulation, I've only picked up the word granulation because it's a new trendy word, isn't it? It's about, we're in the fine granuled parts of the situation. I hear the word a lot, so I've decided to use it. So if you think about the amount of detail, the amount of thinking involved. What you've got down at the bottom is you've got the tiny elements of doing things. Then you've got the tactical. So you've got the doing, you've got the tactical. This is more about what tool are we going to use for this? What checklist have we got? What problem-solving tool are we going to use? What room are we going to use for morning meetings? What are we going to do on one-to-ones? That's much more the tactical thing. What we've got at a higher level, broader opportunities, is the strategic thinking. You know, what programs are we going to put across all of the organization? What end results are we trying, what business results are we trying to achieve? And right up here, you've got the, you know, let's do something completely different. Let's try new things. But of course, the conceptual stage, an organization can't stay there because nothing happens. Has lots of great ideas, but it doesn't work its way down to having proper strategies, the tools and techniques which live, in my world anyway, live in the tactical stage, and then you get into the doing of the doing. One of the challenges for organizations, and one of the things that we do see, is a lot of the thinking is down here. So they will come up with a new tool. Let's put something in the call center. Let's put a new process in for that. Let's put a new tool in. Let's have some problem solving activities. Or unfortunately, it lives in the, can you do this differently, please? So that's one of the challenges. So a good program, if you imagine this as a ladder, let's say, just for comic purposes. So if you imagine that, the skill of being able to think differently is the organization knowing to be in one of these four categories at the right time. Okay, good. So that illustrates, I think, when we talk about the appropriate thinking or not, or the wrong level of thinking, it fits into these categories. Are we really thinking about systems? And are we really thinking through a process of wide open opportunities down to nitty-gritty closed actions? And it's looking at the right thinking at the right time. So let's move on to the second one, working in silos. Now, when we go into an organization, you've probably got lots of examples of this as well. When you go into an organization, certainly it happens to me, I say to the boss, I use the terms on purpose. How does it work here? And the first thing they show me is an organization chart. They go, this is me, this is sales, this is operations, this is design. And of course it goes on, there's 8 or 9, different functions within the business. And of course that's helpful, so who's head of sales, who's in charge of operations. Let's just write it: sales, operations, design. And what we've seen is that these guys have their own objectives. They even have their own improvement programs. They have their own development programs. Ops have all the manufacturing, if you're into manufacturing, or operational inefficiencies to fix. They usually own this is what happened in Procter & Gamble years ago. Operations owned TPM programs and everybody else watched. And we realized that we needed to integrate things more. And then you've got design over here. But that's not how on a day-to-day basis, that's not how the organization really works, is it? I mean, we all know this. How it really works is that person over there interacts with that person over there. That person over there interacts with them. They go over there, they put that together like this, and they put that together. So on a day-to-day basis, people are interacting and working with each other and breaking down these silos. But when it comes to an organized, significant change program, business improvement, transformational change program, when it doesn't really start by if you go back to what I was saying before, conceptually, how can I join all the business up to all work and join and support each individual bit. So we think working in silos can cause issues. It can also cause misunderstandings around matrix and how matrix operations work. So it can be quite an issue. And again, I've broken these silos down into 3 points. So the first one, this is a very strong systems thinking point, and that is operations drive improvements, HR, learning and development, drive capability and skills. And although some organizations have moved away from that, it's still the predominant thing that you see. So if you go into a business, you'll find HR or learning and development will have a quite sophisticated, quite effective to a point, leadership and development program, and operations will have, like I said before, they will have their inefficiency improvement type programs. But actually, the way to make things sustainable, to make them stick and continue to improve, is to intrinsically join the 2 things together. So again, I haven't drawn for about 30 seconds, so I'll start to get the shakes. So if I draw, I like Venn diagrams. So if I draw activities up here or tasks, inside this box is a series of tasks associated with the improvement that we're talking about. So I'll draw a line to divide the next bit of the drawing. But before I do, let's just say this is task thinking, right? So LinkedIn, again, everything's joined up, don't forget. LinkedIn with the thinking, if we only think about doing things, we end up doing a lot of activities or tasks. Underneath that line, going back to systems thinking a bit, this is process thinking. Process is a system, isn't it? That's all. So if we draw 2 blobs, I like Venn diagrams, don't forget. One of them is the infrastructure. So if you go back to what I said at the beginning of this webinar, Deming, and consequently lots of other people, know that there's hard systems and there's soft systems. And I said at some point in this webinar, I would attempt to join the 2 things together. This is it. So one thing that feeds into the activities is having the right infrastructure. And what I mean is the tools and techniques. So if you take a lean program, if you take a Six Sigma program, they've all got high quality, very professional tools, techniques, and various different approaches. And that's the hard side. To make those work, you need the softer side as well. So if you look at the systems that you need as part of a program to make these activities work, you need to have a look at the capability of individuals, teams, and the organization. And being a Covey trained person, I go to IS principles, and that's knowledge, skill, and attitude. So you need to know stuff, you need the ability to put that knowledge into practice, and you need to do it in a proper, safe, caring, humane way. So knowledge, skill, and attitude is part of capability. And that is an input into the activities of an improvement program. And the smart thing, you know, a lot of you may be doing it, the smart thing is joining the 2 up. So people are learning knowledge, skill, and attitude whilst they're putting in a particular set of tools or part of the methodology. So that's an important, looks like a Banksy, I know that, but that's an important model within the New Leaf stable as well, because we're constantly saying, where are we? Where is that? Is client X got that bit in the middle? Are they doing that there, or is it separate? And it goes back to the silo argument, is that training can be done separately, done very well. You know, let's go to the Lake District. Let's learn about team building. Let's build a raft. Let's have a nice week. And they do, and they learn things, but they come back to work and there's nothing to put that learning into practice unless it's not done effectively. If you join it up, The actual practical implementation of the new capability is putting in the infrastructure of a program. Okay, good. So leadership and management not connected directly at delivering the same results. So the next thing I'm going to draw is something a bit complicated, but it addresses those next two ones. So rewards and connected to the same business results. So this is another webinar in its own right, really, but let me just give you an illustration. So we encourage, as part of the ripples in our clients, that once we've helped them and they've helped themselves implement significant change, the organization needs to be able to redesign the way that it deploys objectives. Now, the thing about this is everybody knows the words. So as soon as everybody knows the words, a lot of people go, we've got that. But the value of this is keeping it simple, not overcomplicating it. One of the negatives is that we would very easily overcomplicate it. So this is the top level team in an organization. They need to have objectives. They need to have goals. They need to have strategies, and they need to have measures. And at that level, this is probably a 5-year plan. Now, because it's maybe 3 years, a 5 or 3 year plan, people want to throw the kitchen sink at it. But the skill of being able to minimize it, keep it simple, is the beauty of then joining up an organization of, many thousands of people. So objectives, 1, 2, 3, 4, big top line objectives, nothing more than 5, probably nothing less than 3. I've worked with top teams, and the first thing I want to do is put everything in there to control every team in 5 different locations. But the beauty of it is to keep it simple. So an objective is, what have we got to deliver for the business? So they're big, broad things, profit, cost reduction, efficiency improvement, safety, whatever it might be. And against those 4 key big numbers that the business can track against it. And then again, simple, 1, 2, maybe 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, strategies on how those objectives are going to be fixed. Okay, so these are the hows. So they're clearly, what have we got to do, and how as a business are we going to do it? And that's, I don't know, 3 to 5 years. I'm making that up. Okay, so here are measures against each of those strategies. So they are trackers. They're not a breakdown of the goals. So each strategy is divided into equal measures of obtaining the goal. Okay, so what you've got is numbers, words. And that's the top level of the organization. That's the head of sales. I'm just using my somewhat simplistic example. Head of sales, head of operations, head of design, and all the others. They're putting that together. Then they go, I'm not going to go more than 2 levels, don't worry. They go and develop their own OGSM. I won't write on all of it. And because they've been a part of that first, so there they are, whoops. So there they are. They're developing the top level. They're going down into their business and leading the same process, but the strategies and the measures, words and numbers, are taken down to be their objectives and goals, objectives and goals, objectives and goals. And that person takes his management team or her management team, and they devise the unique customized house for, what did I say that was? Sales, operations, design. And although people say, oh, we do it, yeah, some people do it, but they change it, they adjust it, and it loses some of its simplicity. Because what you've got here, just to change color again, what you've got here is you've got exactly the same objectives in sales as you've got in operations, as you've got in design, and you're meant to take all of them and see what you can do as your part of the business to work on all of them. And it's sort of joining the business up because they're working on exactly the same things, but they've got influence on what they can influence. So their strategies are much more associated with what they know they can do. So immediately you've got a process that is joining up people and they're not living with. So often the strategies implement lean. I see some of you lean process consultants, various different things. Implement lean can be a strategy amongst all of them, or if it's so important, it's a top level company strategy, then it goes down into the business and automatically gets a plan for implementing based on the work that lower level is. Of course, you can go down again and down again, depending on the size of the organization. And we go to businesses, politely say, how do you cascade your objectives? How do you join your management team up? And they go and they show plans, and they show top level plans, because this, you know, you break this here down to about a year. This isn't 3 years. And the complex plans, it's like rolling out a piece of wallpaper, because they're trying to address things down at this level of the business. And it goes back to this. The objective setting, the way you think about it, the objective setting activity is up here. You don't set those things for a change program. You don't work the fine detail, because if you imagine that going down to another level inside sales, another level inside operations, it's going to get addressed at their local strategies. So it's having the confidence that you're setting that up for the rest of the organization. Okay, so that's a webinar in itself. The third one is not actually consciously thinking about implementing sustainability processes. So this is often done when people think that if we implement well, it will stay. And I've got some real stories about this. We did a great piece of work with an organization, a packaging organization. It was a behavioral safety program. So we'd done pilot work, which I'll explain in a minute. We did pilot work. We went into rollout across, I think, 13 sites, using an integrated approach of development and tools and techniques and training people to coach people that were behaving unsafe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The company was bought by another organization, and we just reached the end of rolling out across the 13 plants. And of course, I was wheeled in to meet the new owners. They were said, what are you helping us with? I explained the behavioral safety program, explained where we were with it. We'd got to near the end of the rollout phase. We were designing in the sustainability phase, and they just didn't understand it. They just thought, if you've been to all the 13 sites and done the implementation, you've finished. And yeah, on one level, you're upset that you've lost the work, but that's not how we think, really. We think about doing the right job. And I couldn't get them to understand that everything that had been done would not stick. If you go back to one of my earlier little pencil graphs, wouldn't stick unless we propped it up with proper processes. And you know, that was a sad day when they couldn't understand that. And what happened was the program's really, there's 2 or 3 pieces of that program that exists, but their safety performance, they've had some serious accidents over the over the years that it's dropped off. It's a shame that we don't think like this as much as we should. So I've broken this down into three elements, and the first one I've really addressed, I suppose. The expectation is that if we implement well, it will make it stick. Do a really good job in implementing it and it will stick. It won't. It's a bit, I'm into hard and soft systems, and part of soft systems is to understand human behavior. And you might remember the rat example. Pavlov, the behavioral psychologist. You put a rat in a maze. He finds his way around the maze. He gets to the cheese, finds the cheese. He does it quicker next time. Does it quicker the time after. Does it quicker the time after. You take the walls of the maze away, and the rat's learns some new behaviors. Still follows the pattern of the walls, finds the cheese. Well, don't want to describe employees as rats, but there's a relationship between the example. So the rat follows the pattern with the walls not there, but over time, he's not daft. He sees that the walls have gone. So what does he do? He shoots in a straight direction to the cheese again. People won't stick to the new ways unless the new ways are made visible, hard, put it in my hand. If those systems aren't put there, then we get issues about old habits creeping back in. So the expectation that if we do it well, it will stick, I'm afraid, doesn't really show itself as being true. Lack of understanding that there's a third phase. I'm going to describe the third phase, and then you'll be pleased to know that it'll be question times, and I've reached my intended script. So lack of the third phase is when we embark with work on a client, we're quite upfront, right? Let's do some pilot work. If it works, let's continue the pilot work in a rollout. But when you get into rollout, it doesn't need much of us, but you need to be thinking about owners and processes to prop it up so it's always in your organization. And a failing program, this is the real, you see a lot of it, I see a lot of it, we see a lot of it. A failing program encourages a new program to launch. And that's, I've seen it often. Oh, we did Lean 5 years ago. Where is it? Oh, we're doing, Company X. We are brilliant program. We've designed it ourselves. Well, what happened to Lean? It wasn't for us. Yeah, but there's lots of good things in it. Yeah, well, we've moved on. And it's a shame because the energy that needs to be generated to start something again over time wanes. Employees enthusiastic about doing things that make their job better, that gets less and less. So let me just go to this next diagram. So you can see he likes graphs. So I'm going to draw another graph. So this is the Y axis. This is the X. This is time. This is results. And I'd like those results to be hard results, like we said before, hard results, new skills, behavior, and a cultural shift. And the cultural shift comes in this sustainability piece. So I've drawn 3 phases here. I've already mentioned them. Pilot, don't chew off too much. Do something, do it well, do it in a prominent place, learn from it, take the learning into rollout. So we're now into rollout, got a rollout phase. And then we're into a sustainability phase, making it stick. And it's a purposeful phase. So let's start on the journey on this graph. Let's start, what should we have, green? That's where we are. That's where we are with results. That's where we are with appropriate skills. That's where we are with culture. The pilot will start to exponentially lift after what I nicknamed the faffing about period. So you've got some uncertainty, it's not clear, but then it starts to take off. And when you're at the takeoff stage, you've already got one eye on the rollout phase. So I'm not talking about us as consultants, I'm talking about the organization that we're working with. We're encouraging them to start looking at this now, because if we use a program, in our case, it's that integrated framework. If we use one or two of those, we've learned so much about the organization, we can accelerate through rollout by replicating that template. And as well as replicating that template in rollout, all of these things are creating their own little ripples. So those little ripples are then starting to look at other organizational development opportunities inside the business, like, for example, cascading objectives, joining the senior management up with common objectives and things like this, matrix organizations, their communication processes, all sorts of things. So you've then got a ramping up. So it's reached a successful, this is where we were with that example. I obviously can't name the company, but this is where we were with behavioral safety. And then it went over 18 months or 2 years because it didn't have this third phase, which is a conscious process of propping up on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis, keeping alive the rat in the maze, keeping that process, reminding people of the shape of the maze, reminding them of the tools and techniques. And what we have is we've got 10 sustainability processes that we look for 10 owners, 5 owners, they may own 2, depends on the size of the organization, and they own those processes. And again, it's almost another webinar in itself. But those 10 processes are things like senior management involvement, refresher training, onboarding training, system ownership, KPIs stitched into daily performance for change management and business improvement, those sort of things. System owners, documentation and audits, that's the rat in the maze. Put the audit back and he knows what he's meant to be following. So we consciously put those 10 in there. And as I said, sadly, there's too many examples of where this has been brilliant in achieving 1, 3 or more important agreed measures of success, only to see, and this is called Hawthorne effect, isn't it? I've mentioned it earlier today, to see Hawthorne effect eat the whole thing up, and eventually then you stood here going, what we want is another program. Then you go back to there and up you go again. And change management consultants talk about the S shape. Start here, go up, go down. Start here, go up, go down. And there's a lot of S shape, but actually I started this webinar talking about inefficiencies. Doing that, going back, reigniting things, recreating things, putting new things, that's just inefficient. And that's my point, that we take inefficiency into the design and the implementation of OD programs. And it's our own worst enemy. So that's the key drawing about sustainability. So we've reached a point where I'm going to take questions. They're on here. I've got some help to let me see them if I can't see them all in one go. Please get in touch with us. That's the head office email, but I see you've had my email go across the slides as well. Whatever comes of conversations is not irrelevant, but certainly the conversation itself is important to us. We love talk, we love puzzles, we like organizational challenges, so please contact us. One of the things that we'd like to do for anybody is just have an informal discussion, a VC or a phone call after this webinar, where we can take your individual situations, and certainly me, I'd like to, help you understand them and work them out. And, if you've got stuff better than us, I'll be equally as pleased as well, because we're always learning ourselves. Okay, so we go to the question part, and I don't know how many we've got. If you want to start sending messages at all. Somebody from Alan, what size groups do you work with? Right, well, we work with, at one level, we work with most of the organization. So we start with a pilot, we go into rollout, I've told you all that. And in those integrated frameworks, we like to put 10 managers into that process. They share projects, they develop their change management skills, their leadership skills, they try and implement projects in a different way. Remember, I've talked about different thinking. So we encourage them to take new thinking into the way that they do that. So that's a block of 10. That's a cohort of 10 for the learning and development people, a cohort of 10, and then we repeat that. And we're never going to get everybody bouncing up and down, wanting to do wonderful things, but it's a percentage. So if we do more than one of those programs, depending on the size of the business, is you start to create a critical mass. And those ripples that I've talked about before, you don't need everybody to create all of those ripples. You need that critical mass. So that's important. So thanks for that question. And in some organizations, they are OGSIM, where I stands for initiatives. Well, that's a good point. No, there's no name on that. That's a good point. And I don't want to appear to be flippant, but my point would be, well, why? Because a strategy is an initiative, isn't it? I can't quite understand the difference. And although somebody's had a really good idea there, I said one of the reasons why systems like that, processes like that get clumsy and clunky is because somebody starts, I don't know what it is. We work, people in management and big organizations are intelligent people. And I think part of it must be, we need to make this a bit more complicated, else they won't believe that we've thought about it. So there's this almost like a negative circle of, this is really simple. Yeah, but it's too simple. They won't believe us. It's too simple to do. Wow, let's make it, subconsciously, let's make it more complicated. Let's put another column in there. Let's color code it for these people, that people. And it just adds complexity to it. So I'm happy to be, if anybody wants to take that offline, I'd like to know how that I works, because, I might have been doing it less well than I could. But I can't see it. Initiative. I don't know if anybody wants to look it up on another day in the dictionary, but I thought initiative and strategy were pretty much the same thing. And if it's showing that it's a strategy associated with another initiative, then they haven't understood the OGSM cascading process properly. All right, very good. It's a good question. It's a tester. In a successful organization, stakeholder management is an important factor driving forward through a change. It is. And in the time allotted, I haven't majored on that, but that stakeholder management is a lot about encouraging them to be thinking differently as well. So I talked about one of the key opportunities, let's call them, as thinking differently, getting the stakeholder managers to think differently, because when people are in a busy situation, they're in their silos and they're being driven by their own spreadsheets. They're being driven by what their boss is beating them up about today. So when they hear of good things, but they don't always see them as good things in another area, but they should be because they're stakeholders, they don't see the relevance of their own part of the organization as much as they should. And again, I think it's part of that silo activity. Any other questions coming through before we wrap up? We've got a couple on what's the model called. I'm not sure if you're talking about the funnel or you're talking about Deming again, but if you're talking about the funnel, I've nicknamed it the spectrum of thinking. But if you want a copy of it, follow the banner at the bottom, or there's two email addresses. There's the generic one at the office. There's my personal one, and I'm very happy to get involved directly with your opportunities or your further questions. Thank you. Very interesting presentation. What strategies can you advise for influencing an operator? Well, the thing about influencing an operator, so if you take that OGSM, I was, in the time I've got, I was being if you are, it's the same person, you see. So C5% was the value for softer side, but no, I didn't say 5% was the value of softer side. I'll come back to that in a minute, Mark. I'm still addressing this stakeholder. Minor stakeholders, the operators that you call it, that sounds like somebody in a manufacturing operation. Operator, call center, junior, workforce, those people, if you take that OGSM and you cascade it down, there's two things. One is the hard side. They should have their equivalent to OGSM, or if it's not relevant, because there are a small amount of them, they should have one or two of their department's strategies, and they should be cascaded down. And the job of their manager and their manager's manager and other stakeholders around them is in the communication piece, which is telling them how important their role is within that system that's going to get us the £10 million investment at the top of the tier 1 objectives. Mark Wood, 5% results. Yes, I didn't say, let's just see, 5% was the value for softer side, but do you know the percentage for human factors making systems fail? Yeah, it's 5%. So it's about 5% of maverick, uncontrolled behavior. Ones that come in and say, I don't care about this, I'm going to mess it up. Most people, you're talking about the lower level of the organization, and I'm hesitant about using that term because I'm a big fan of everybody. A human being in an organization is equal, really. I don't mean flat. They don't get the same money as the CEO, but I'm sure some of them would like to. But when you look at the organization and you think about those people that work every day in a certain structured approach, they come to do a good job, right? So if they're coming, right, we're running the end of the, are we going to shut down in a minute or? Take questions. Oh, no, I didn't know what that sign meant. So just having a bit of technology information come at me. A person comes to work to do a good job. That doing a good job only gets messed up because they don't know how to do it. They're not understanding what to do properly, or somebody's not telling them something properly. And that's the work system, Mark. So if you broaden your mind to a work system is, don't forget the hard and the soft. So the soft ones are, they're not written down, but it's just the way we do it around here. Managers are responsible for making those the best they can. Their thinking makes those, or not, the best they can. Those systems that, if I'm an operator and I'm next to another operator, we don't know what to do. We go, what do we do here? I don't know. Let's make it up. Is that the operator or is that the system? In this thinking, it's the system. So it goes back to what I said before. 95% of it is down to the system. 5% of it is down to rogue, just to use another term, rogue, not saboteurs, but whatever. Okay, yeah, somebody needs to go. I do as well. I need to lie down after these webinars. Anybody else with any questions? It's been great to see you. So let me just remind you of the possible processes. You can contact us for some more information. You can contact us for a scheduled, very informal conversation. We're not arm twisters. And that's how we've been going for so long. We don't ask people for work. It just fits between two right-thinking, similar thinking people. So you can contact us for information, contact us for a recording of this. If you want to take it if you can't sleep at night, take it to bed. It will be better than the Horlicks. And if you want a meeting or some further information, and it could be something that we haven't talked about today, but if you do send an email, either send it to my personal account or the head office account, which is on the screen. I'll leave you with those thoughts. So thanks for signing up. Thanks for attending. I will thank you for listening. You might be asleep in your armchair, but I thank you for signing up. And again, I'll be doing one of these in a few weeks' time. All right. Thank you very much indeed. Okay. Bye.